Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has praised the security agency's performance during the just concluded presidential and National Assembly elections, urging them to replicate same during the forthcoming governorship and state assembly elections. Yakubu made the commendation during the Commission's meeting with the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, which held at its headquarters here in Abuja. Take a look.
Security of officials, materials and voters is imperative on election day. For the INEC chairman, security agencies have not done badly during the presidential and National Assembly elections. Mahmoud Yakubu commended the cooperation of the different security agencies during the just concluded elections, with a call for them to do more in the impending governorship and state assembly elections.
We look forward to improved performance in the election holding this weekend. The governorship election will hold in 28 states of the Federation. As we are aware, governorship elections in 8 states, Anambra, Bayelsa, Edo, Ekiti, Imo, Kogi, Ondo and Osun states are held off-cycle and therefore not conducted during the general election. However, elections will be conducted for all the 993 state constituencies nationwide. Our state offices have made available to the Nigeria Police Force, being the lead agency in election security, the delimitation details for both the governorship and state assembly elections.
The National Security Advisor, Babagana Mogono, commended the peaceful conduct of political parties and their members during the elections. He said national security should not be relegated to the background during the forthcoming elections.
So far, so good. We do not envisage anything that's going to be terrible or apocalyptic in terms of the next few days. But that does not mean that we should all do away with our state of readiness. We must comply with the rules. We must also allow everyone, I've said this so many times, to exercise their fundamental rights as citizens of this country. What we do not want to happen is for anybody to preempt and to take the law into his or her own hands.
Rivalry and competition for political offices are more intense during governorship elections, shaped largely by local politics. Noel Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Also on our tidbit, the federal government said that a total of 13 million attacks were recorded during the February 25th presidential and National Assembly elections period in Nigeria. The attacks, which they said originated from both within and outside Nigeria, were made on public websites and portals and average around 1.5 million daily. The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Isa Ali Pantami, said in a statement on Tuesday. However, Pantami said the attacks skyrocketed to almost 7 million on presidential election day. On tonight's program, we're joined by Mukhtar Suleiman. He's a public commentator from Accountability Lab. Welcome to the program.
Welcome. Mukhtar. I think this is the first time we're seeing this year, so Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you very much. And more especially after the election.
Yes, most especially after the intense elections.
Yes. Maybe we should start with our tidbit.
Okay.
The first one, the meeting, INEC chairman with stakeholders, the security architecture. He praised them. Is that worth it?
Well, this general election that we just concluded was one of a tricky one. What I got to notice is that a lot of people, for the large bulge of people who actually followed the election, this was their first time following the Nigerian election this actively. The election in itself, we'll talk about security-wise and other logistical issues that happened. The election in itself was a bad election.
Bad.
But yeah, it was the election in itself.
Okay.
But if you compare it to other elections that has happened in the past,
yes,
this was progress. Our elections have always been characterized by a lot of violence and what happened. But it wasn't as much
this time around.
yes, as what we used to see in the past. It was a bit quiet. It was not boring. It was interesting. It had some high notes.
Even
and
ahead of
whatnot.
the elections, most of the activities that
Exactly. We saw a lot of issues, a lot of things that happened. I happened to be an observer for the election that day.
okay from your lab,
Yes,
right?
yes. We worked with Connected Development to set up a situation room at Sheraton, where we observed the elections, both INEC preparedness and also security reports that came out of that election. And one thing I can say is that it's not a high progress, it's not a significant progress, but it's some progress
Compared to what we had
we've had in the past.
2019,
2015,
2015.
2011,
Okay.
and
But why are people complaining this time around?
it goes back to what I said earlier. I think there is now less political apathy and more political involvement from a larger population of the country. And for most of them, they've not really followed they've not followed the Nigerian election space for a very long time. The part of the complaint also that came in was INEC rolled out this whole standard that it wanted to hold itself by, and because of that there was trust in the system,
Yes.
especially with the electronic transmission of results. For the first time, I think, before I go into that, I think one of the things, I've said this severally, is that the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud, missed the opportunity to go down in Nigeria's history as one of the best, this election going on in Nigeria's history as one of the best elections that we've actually had. Because one of the major things that went missing is that electronic transmission of results. Because for the first time, we saw incumbent governors losing their seats in large numbers to go to the to go and retire.
Like Sabo, right?
Yeah, to go and retire in
like Darius Ishaku in
Exactly.
Taraba, Autumn in Benue.
We saw unusual winnings in the general elections. Like, for example, when APC was still three parties, CPC has never lost Nasarawa. For the first time, APC lost Nasarawa State. Tinubu's stronghold has always been Lagos. He lost Lagos. The president lost Katsina, which is his home state.
Yes.
So these are things.
They are pointers.
Malam Nasir lost Kaduna, didn't just lose Kaduna for the presidency, lost his 3 senatorial zones in the state. So these are changes that actually happened, which actually speaks well of the electoral system, of what we had this time. But that's not transmitting the results electronically. That's a major problem.
Okay, we will get to that.
Yeah.
Now, talking about security, as the INEC chairman said, that they should replicate what they did. I know here, the Daily Trust, we did an editorial and we commended the security operatives for their non-partisanship,
Exactly.
and how they behaved throughout the election. But there are some papers, TV stations, radio stations, they all went out and descended on the security.
I think one of the few things that Nigerians need to understand is that we need to know what the law says about certain things. We need to know what SOPs are about and rules of engagement for most of the security personnel. I'm not going to speak as a security expert, I'm not. But for little interaction with some of my friends who are in the security field, some things are not tenable.
Yeah.
A typical example would be there was an outrage about a video where people were causing mayhem, but the policeman did not get involved in it. He had to stay out of it. One of the SOPs of the police during election, it is part of the reason why they're not carrying armed, why they're not being armed close to the bar.
Yes.
It's not to get involved. We're not in a military regime. They are at the mercy of a civilian control.
Under normal circumstances, they shouldn't even be there.
Yeah, under normal circumstances, they are not supposed to be there. So their job there is observe and report. If when they report, oh, there's a ruckus going on here, and should we engage? And they are given the authority to engage, or then they will have to send in those ones that goes out, that falls within the outside 100 feet perimeter where they are armed, to come into the fold and actually keep the peace. Okay. That's how the process works. It's unfortunate that because in the past, when these ones standing close to the ballot boxes used to hold ammunitions, there was issues of thugs coming in, overpowering them and collecting their ammunitions and using it for violence. So now, in order to eliminate that completely, that's okay, you can stay there, but don't hold any form of ammunition. So you cannot expect that person to be the one, speaking from the human angle, of course.
Exactly.
But then talking about the rules of engagement, he is not even allowed to actually do that, he or she, as a police officer. Because you can be rest assured that there were DSS officers there wearing muftis.
Exactly.
Why didn't they get involved?
Be pretended as if they wanted to catch
so
them.
why didn't they get involved as well? Because that is not what they were sent there to do.
All right,
It's
thank you very
unfortunate,
much.
but that's the situation.
Yeah, we'll go on a short break. Viewers, don't go away. We'll be back shortly.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Created a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Really, if you look at England squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
Yes, welcome back. And this is to welcome Baba Yusuf, policy analyst and strategist. Welcome to the program. Also.
Thank you very much.
Yes, before you step in, I ask, Mukhtar, because one of our tidbits was on election security.
Okay.
The INEC chairman hosted stakeholders from various security agencies, and he praised them, and he said they should replicate what they did during the presidential and national assembly election. And the question I asked him was, is that praise worth it? And he said, yes, it is worth it, because of course this election wasn't perfect, but it was far, far better compared to previous elections. You have contrary view, or you are on the same page with him?
I totally agree with Mukhtar, because it's very easy to compare this, particular, poser. We had 2019, we had 2015, in between we had other elections. And we have all witnessed what happened. With the hue and cry about the election is more about the disruption within with regards to the back office and with regard to process, exactly rather than the security.
Yeah,
so when it is the time to say kudos, we must say kudos. We saw minimal interference is minimized by the security agencies with regards to their involvement in the process. So to that extent, I add my voice to what Mukhtar said, and also give thumbs up to the security agencies with regards to that performance.
Mukhtar, some are saying there are other factors. I don't know whether it's true that there was no money that will warrant, people, confronting themselves, and this also helped to some extent in minimizing frictions and acrimony, during the election. Is that correct?
Well, we can't have a false dilemma. We can't say something because this was not available and then this happened, that then this had to have been the reason why this happened. One thing we can be rest assured of is that before even the Naira redesign policy came on board, we had seen a lot of people that have, like Nigerians themselves, without even any form of external influence, have been advising other Nigerians to shun violence.
Yes.
People wanted to partake in the polls and do that within their democratic right and ensure that they are actually doing it within the purview of the law.
Yeah.
Because they wanted their votes to count this time. We saw people come out en masse to vote. How that translates to the percentage of people who voted, that's open for debate. There are a lot of debates around that. But it could be, we cannot take it away, because if you're going to look at the outcome of the election, you have to consider all variables that played out, both the political nuances, the economic nuances of things that happened before then. So we actually have to look at it as well and factor it into the outcome. But whether it is the primary reason, let me put it that way, whether it is the primary reason, I'll leave that for the researchers to do, and then analyze and assess and give us that.
Okay, Baba Yusuf, what is your take on this?
With regards to
the money, maybe there was no money to influence people, dissipating energy to fight.
Well, to my mind, to be honest, Hamza is neither here nor there.
Okay.
I think there were 4 dummies that were sold to Nigerians with regards to the cashless policy.
Which is actually part of our
so if you look at it, with regards to voter inducement,
yes,
we saw what I call necessity being the mother of invention, where inducements were packets of spaghetti, pig milk cans, and other methodologies, including the cash inducements via transfer, as highlighted or as reported by the Nigerian Bar Association. Their interim report highlighted this issue.
Even though they commended the general...
Yes, but this stood out as one of the thorny issues to report.
Yes.
So yes, the non-availability of cash, to my mind, rather impacted not positively but negatively, because we even heard the National Security Advisor mentioning the impact of this cashless policy on the security agencies, the armed forces and the entire security agencies. The logistics value chain was impacted vis-a-vis delivery of the entire process. So in my own opinion, that cashless policy, because when we are doing an evaluation, we have to take it wholesome, and look at the total impact, and rather than throwing the baby with the bathwater. To my mind, the election is with regards to the political evolution of Nigeria, and it is a subset of the developmental movement of Nigeria.
As a whole.
If a lot of people were dying on election day, we are spending their day hungry without any positive impact on the outcome of the election vis-a-vis their expectations and their, what they were told that will happen. And then the outcome should not be adjudged to be, on the positive. And that is my opinion.
Okay, Mukhtar, my next question is actually like a hypothesis of sort. Is it a coincidence that Professor Pantami issued a statement today that within the election period, there were 13 million attacks on the infrastructure of INEC, right? Now, today, INEC chairman now spoke to security agencies. The other aspect is the failure of INEC to transmit results. Is there a nexus between these 3 issues?
Whether or not there is a nexus, actually, would know that as time goes on, as things begin to unfold leading up to the gubernatorial elections at subnational level, which I must add is a very vital election, and everybody should please go out to vote at subnational level, because policies that actually impact human lives are made from that particular position. But going to what you actually asked, I would be appalled. I would be disappointed if there was no attempt to hack the INEC server.
Okay.
Because, I would be disappointed, because of course there's going to be attempts to hack the INEC server, and I'm glad that the NCC was well prepared to actually handle that under the leadership, under the leadership of Professor Issa Pantami, which is actually something that we actually need to commend, because whether or not now these attempted attacks were the possible reasons why results were not transmitted.
Yes.
when the litigation starts and the court cases begin to come out and documents begin to fly around, we would understand that a little bit more clearer. But I doubt it is the reason why that didn't happen, because if it were, it would have been very, very obvious. I think what had happened, personally, as somebody who has a minimal idea of how tech works, is that the servers of INEC were overloaded, because that particular day, where I was trying to sign into the voter portal, the INEC portal was down. I was trying to sign into the voter portal.
You were unable to.
I was not able to. So, and usually whenever you get that kind of error message, gateway error message, it's usually when that particular server is overloaded. So I'm thinking probably that's what happened.
Maybe the capacity
yes,
of the server to take this.
At the same time.
Yeah. Babu Yusuf, what is your take? Is there a correlation between these millions of attacks and the inability, whether wittingly or unwittingly, by INEC not to upload the election results?
There could be correlation, but the issue is this. In the last, let's say, 7-8 years or more, there has been a trend of the rise of global cyber crime.
Yeah.
You know, not just in financial, in the case of financial institutions or infrastructure, but security architecture and even electoral processes. We've seen how cyber attacks played roles and even caused issues, even in the elections of the United States of America. So suffice it to say, from a strategic perspective, is it that INEC did not contemplate in their strategic plan for the infrastructure, putting the process and the system in place, and ensuring they have enough countermeasures to anticipate these attacks and prepare? And if so, if they did, maybe that is why we are hearing this report today. The only issue, which is good, but the only issue I have as a post-mortem remark on this is that probably INEC should have come clean during the process as a crisis management measure to speak to the Nigerian public. And this is not an espionage or a spy situation. This is a serious issue. A promise was made, a process was undertaken. We have a new electoral law, and it is very clear with regards to the process. And if a critical failure factor emerges, which is a threat actually, within the framework of an IT system and deployment, strategy framework, you need to have what is called disaster recovery or continuous delivery process. And if that is the case, you say, if this scenario happens, this is what happens. And you come and tell Nigerians that you are having multi-million attacks on your system. Nobody will blame you. And you say, because of that, this is what you are doing. And this is the fallback option. I think that would have engendered more confidence in the process and mitigated all these issues. But like Mukhtar said, as the litigations ensue, people will ask questions and maybe demand for what is called an audit trail. In the IT world, the audit trail will show you the footprints of activities in the back office, which will confirm that really these things were taking place. In fairness also to INEC, to play the devil's advocate, they may have been keeping quiet for some strategic reasons. But I dare say, in a crisis situation like this, like it's a standard practice, best practice, people come through and say, we are facing this challenge, and this is what we are doing because of that. I think that would have engendered more what do you call it, confidence.
Just to also add to what he said. As a communications person myself, I think one of the few things I actually prioritize in every communication strategy is to ensure that you have what I call, this is me personally, a contingency communication plan within your plan. So what that does is, after your audience profile analysis, it shows you who your audiences are, what their demography is, and how they behave around certain topics under your audience profile analysis. So the contingency plan says, if all of these communication strategies does not work and people react a certain way to this is what we should do. This is what a response should look like. It might not be able to outline specifically down to the nitty-gritty of it, but for example, what I would have expected the INEC chairman to say, just to reiterate what Baba Yusuf said, was that the INEC chairman should have come out before the result collation started. That time he gave that press conference before he adjourned to 6 p.m. He would have said there that we want to apologize to Nigerians. Like, typically, this is what I would advise him if I was
system
there.
is under attack.
Not really on that. Maybe he might not want to say that, so that it doesn't show incompetence. But due to some technical issues, due to some technical issues which we are trying really hard to solve, we might not be able to do electronic transmission of results at this time. We are working very hard to sort this issue out. However, in order not to delay this process any further, to ensure that we don't leave a leadership vacuum in this country, we are going to go back to manual collation. We are sorry. We know we told you we wanted to do electronic transmission. You can see that we even went ahead to develop a website for this. We even used it in Osun election, it worked. We used it for Ekiti State election, it worked. But now we used it in a mock trial, it worked. We all saw it. So that's to show you that we wanted good faith. But unfortunately, we are here now.
And we are sorry.
We are trying to fix it, but we have to go back to manual. When you leave a communication vacuum that much,
and I think that was why I have this question whether their communication strategy is really good.
We didn't even see what the communication strategy looked like. Communication strategies for elections, I think it should be a public document.
Absolutely.
So that we can see what the process is. Because it allows us to also partake in the process. It allows us to see what you have planned and how we are factored into that plan. CSOs never had access to that strategy, to the best of my knowledge. The Nigerian populace did not have access to that strategy, to the best of my knowledge either. So I think these are things that the INEC needs to learn from going forward. Because like I said earlier, this current INEC team actually missed a very significant opportunity to go down in Nigeria history as the team who conducted the best elections in this country.
Now taking the, INEC, they kept saying it's not about electronic transmission, but uploading
the results.
I think they've been clear on this for a very long time. Now, taking the issue of uploading the election, set it aside. The issue of rigging, where they are rigging in this election compared to, riggings, right? Compared to what we had in 2019, 2003, 1999, 2011, and all that. When you look at the electoral map.
Should I answer that?
Yes.
Because to be honest, where we are today has, the reports of
you are just CSOs, excited, right?
Yeah, the report of the CSOs and all the stakeholders have been very clear. Rigging, I believe, even what I said earlier is rigging. The inducement is part of the rigging process, right? We've seen where election materials were scattered, were disrupted, election process. Of course, it's not as much as, in some cases, for example, you cannot compare this election with 2007 elections, for example.
In terms of credibility?
In terms of credibility, 2007 remains, a very sore, thumb, in the history of our political evolution. But that being said, to answer the question directly, were there riggings? Of course there were riggings. We've seen, and this rigging, I dare say here today, is across all parties.
Okay,
it's not a single
those
party.
That are actually
based on what we have all seen in the media. And interesting.
But remember, Baba, there are some, here in Daily Trust, we fact check some of the videos. Some were as old as 2011.
Yes.
But, these social media warriors, they went and excavated those videos, uploaded them and said, okay, this is what is happening in Bauchi, this is what is happening in Ekiti, this is what is happening in Lagos and all that.
And then what about some of the videos that are uploaded that are even of parties that may not have been that active at that time? What I'm saying is, the truth is, there is need for improvement going forward. We expected so much from the Electoral Act review, from the level of investment in terms of money, in terms of time that have been made. So to answer the question, were there rigging? The answer for me is capital YES, yes. And to my mind, I still stand until I'm proven wrong. Maybe the litigation process will prove some of us wrong. It is across all parties.
Okay, what about the issue of those that are not in power? Is it that they outrigged those almighty governors that wanted to come to Senate and they are unable to? Before you came, we listed like 7, right?
Yes.
They could not make it to Senate for the first time in the history of Nigeria. Of course, you know, we had isolated incidences in previous elections where some governors misstep and they don't make it to the Senate. But this time around, you can see the governors were all out. Can we say it's a sign of credibility of the election? Mukhtar?
I think it's not business as usual anymore. And everybody is coming to realize that the election climates, the political climates have actually changed so significantly. Say what you want. However, the process of the electioneering process was on the 25th of February, but the voice of the people actually spoke. You cannot deny that. For the first time in our Nigerian history, we have about seven political parties makes up the House of Representatives, and yes, and none of the political parties have 2/3 of the Senate to pass any bill.
Even though we still have some elections to hold, right?
Yeah. While the ruling party has the highest number, they don't have 2/3 of.
Yes,
they don't have 2/3.
But maybe after the.
I'm very doubtful that they would have 2/3. I'm very doubtful about that, but we'll see that as the process actually begins to unfold. If they do. But I'm highly doubtful about that. But because what that means for our elections now is that political parties, actors across political parties at that House of Representatives, both the two houses, have to work together to get things done along political lines. So the concept of national well-being will now come to the fore, because for you to get your 2/3 to pass the bill, you have to find a way to convince the next person that, oh, this is for the betterment of your people as well, which is actually a good thing. We're getting that diversity we want when we say we wanted a multi-party system. I'm really interested in seeing what 2027 would look like after this 10th Assembly and this whole governance season goes through. But I am really, honestly, one of the few things, one thing you cannot deny is that the voice of the people spoke, and that has actually changed the dynamics of the election process. Governors are going all out, doing the very best that they can do to ensure that they can actually win, because for example, a Tinubu lost Lagos.
Yeah.
That means the sitting governor has to up his game. And we've been seeing him everywhere, trying as much as possible, campaigning anyhow and every way he can, which is actually good. For the politicians should work very hard for their positions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is very
I can see you nodding your head.
Yes.
I will allow you to talk.
Because
but we need to go on break.
Okay. Yes.
Viewers, please don't go away. We will go on a short break, and when we return, the conversation continues.
That's great. It's good to see you.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV. Do well to follow the conversation across all our social platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and watch us live on YouTube. We still have Baba Yusuf and Mukhtar Suleiman from Accountability Lab discussing this wonderful topic, how it's going to work out. You are nodding your head. Yes. Maybe in agreement, because Mukhtar said, for a very long time, right? This is the first time we are now having about 7 political parties, and maybe it will be for the betterment of the generality of Nigerians.
Yeah, I will just add to that. Mukhtar mentioned that it's a very good one, a very good development for that we have a very diverse if you like, legislature coming in, and that will give room for robust debates and, very, very, detailed and well thought out and fought, legislation, if you like, and if that will add value to our political evolution. I think that is going to be a litmus test. But you see, I have one or two concerns or I'm a bit wary of what will happen. Is different from what we see in the United States of America or the UK or all that. As an evolving polity, or as a political space that is evolving, what we know in Nigeria that has become also a trend, because I would like to go back and talk about those governors that lost out, is that we know that what is fashionable is that we have politicians that operate the principle of what we call AGIP, AGIP, all government, any government in power.
Okay.
And we have seen it play out from 2015 to 2022 today.
Okay.
When we saw die-hard opposition when they convened the 8th Assembly in 2015. You had the likes of a minority leader at that time in the person of Senator Godswill Akpabio and their likes, ferociously attacking the ruling party, not giving them breathing space all the way, notwithstanding the internal fracas even within the APC due to the emergence of the Senate President Bukola Saraki.
Yes.
And then voila, years later, within the legislature, you still have these people crossing carpet in drones to the party that is in power. And you see most times, right from 1999, the tradition is the legislature is convened with some majority and minority. By the time you are exiting that assembly, the majority has ballooned from what it was. And the only way it can balloon is because the minority has lost some of its members. Of course, it's also the other way around, but largely they balloon the other way. What am I saying? How will this diversity be sustained vis-a-vis the 10th Assembly's actions and processes?
Okay, how do we get it?
And what we foresee is today we have what I call, the politics of today is what I call same wine, different bottles. Most of the political actors, even for those that have come back, have been in one party or the other in the past 8 years. They have been switching sides and changing positions. Even some of them that have won now. The only good thing about it is we have new entrants in the assembly that I call the political greenhorns, that even ab initio actually tried to go into the politics due to, for example, the obedient movement. You have the Labour Party having an entry into the legislature at the National Assembly, and you have the PDP and the NNPP.
We also have SDP, right?
SDP.
Yes.
But also don't forget,
Young People's Party.
Yes, don't forget, if you go back to the permutations and combination and the dynamics, mechanics of the electioneering period, you see what I call the political juggernauts in various locations that had fallen out due to the internal wranglings of, for example, the ruling party.
The bigger parties.
Now, they tested their political dexterity when they were either refused the ticket or they lost at the primaries.
So they moved to another...
They moved to another platform, tested their political capacity and dexterity and won. There is a tendency, there's a possibility those people may cross back to their, what you call, abode. That being said, the new entrants, the new kids on the block, if you call it, if you can call it that, because I think they are not kids, but for want of a better phrase, will be the ones that will bring the freshness, if any, or they change the trend, if possible.
If they suppress their appetite, right?
And that is if they have one, first of all, the numbers, and two, if they have, some of them have the experience ab initio. You see, it takes political sagacity and experience to drive legislation. is a total different ball game.
Okay.
It's not just about raising your hands and opposing a bill. A lot of back office, backslabbing, lobbying, and negotiation takes place. And you have some that have moved to other parties, but they are legislative, what I call old war horses. You know, and so it's going to be a very interesting scenario.
And what you are saying,
I don't see that which Mukhtar is saying playing out sharply. I'm very optimistic, but I call it cautious optimism with regards to the trend of our politics.
Actually, Mukhtar, you know, in our conversation earlier, he was saying while the ruling party has the highest number of representatives, no political party actually has 2/3 of the House to pass any bill or policy. For the first time in our legislative house, our representatives will be forced to work together, else nothing will work. Maybe you shed more light on this. In line with what he said also, maybe the new entrants, if they have the dexterity, if they have the legislative experience, or you mustn't have that because I think they will be trained along that, but if you have your pedigree before you get to the National Assembly. But I know for sure there are some who actually followed the plot, you know, I mean the bandwagon effect. They never expected that they will make it to National Assembly.
I know.
We have senators that they never dreamt of getting close to that chamber, but here we are now. Very soon they will be sworn in.
Yeah, I think that sort of, my reply will be anchored on what he said earlier, which is about the level of freshness they're going to bring, newer perspective, more insights. They'll be forced to learn on the job, as the case may be, which may be a good or a bad thing for us as a very infant democracy. As much as we want to look at Nigeria, we've only enjoyed about 26 years of uninterrupted democracy.
23 actually.
23 years of uninterrupted democracy. So we want to, I'm interested in seeing how this plays out. The fears that Baba has actually mentioned earlier are actually well-founded, because we know that the political space is filled with that cross-carpeting, tendencies of so much cross-carpeting. But it's highly dependent on if you want to be re-elected. Let me put it that way. We saw, you know how you got elected. You know how your candidate voted you and why they did. So unless something changes within the next 4 years about this obedient move and the wave, because for most of them we're going to speak to that context because they were the ones who came in newly, mostly, largely. They might want to stay there so that they can retain their mandate for the next elections. Because if you could not get it the first time, if you were in, say, one of the bigger parties, and then you moved down there and then you got it, that means that you've tested your mandate. Yes, you've tested your mandate, and your mandate is legit, is something that can actually get you there. But it's still something that we need to be scared of, whether that might happen, and what level of newer ideas will be allowed to actually go into that floor and play out. Because that backdoor negotiation in politics, that midnight meeting, is something that you have to learn how you're going to play the field. Yeah,
of course.
Which is something you have to learn how to play the field. I was in a sister organization, media house some days ago where we were discussing the idea behind night meetings. And the honest truth is that some of the biggest deals in the political space are being struck in those backdoor negotiations before they come to the floor of the Senate. So how do you plug into that if you're so new that you have no political capital, you've not built any street credibility for yourself? This is the best time for you to start seeing how you can cook that up for yourself. What can you trade for the betterment of your constituents? Because politics is a scratch my back and scratch your back thing. So you have to give and take. So what can you give now? Okay, now you're there. What do you have? The little you have. Who can you give the little you have so that you can start? Because there's a popular Pidgin English adage, and from clap they enter dance. So what's your clap? So that you can get your clap first, continue, and then eventually you can actually evolve into the dance.
Yes, Baba, you are also nodding your head, but I want to add this question so that whether it will be in agreement with what he said. Of course, attrition in the National Assembly is an entirely different topic which we will discuss going forward, maybe some other time. But what do you think the 10th National Assembly should do to reduce this tendency of cross-carpeting? Because we have fresh bloods now going there. And you see, we're having issues. You see more than 70-80% of those that the government spent millions of naira to train in legislative drafting and all that, you know, they will all be carried out of the National Assembly every election season. What do you think these people, now we have 7 parties there. It will be very interesting. What should we expect from them?
Well, it's going to be very, very cranky for the first 6 months or so for people to get a feeling, especially for the newcomers. And for the old war horses, it's time for them to actually, entrench themselves in the system. It's going to be very difficult for us. The process will continue, the evolution will continue, but I believe it will be slower than we anticipate or that we would like. Why? Because until our polity or the political aspirations or the political parties are driven by political ideology, this which we are expecting now with regards to people that have come in and people that have cross-carpeted to another party to remain consistent and to remain loyal to the party, in the first place, what is the ideology that brought them in? Even for the obedient movement, what is the political ideology? And how sustainable is that political ideology, vis-a-vis the current situation of things? Because for the build-up to the governorship election, I'm going to digress a bit to come back here. I have heard and I've had interaction with obedience, people that, support His Excellency Peter Obi, to say they are not supporting the Labour Party, they are supporting a movement. And for upcoming governorship election, they are clearly saying they are not voting along party lines, they are voting individuals that have what they call political credibility. Some of them even going as far as going at cross purposes with the position of the presidential candidate. These are the signs of days to come for the Labour Party as a party. And when you come to the legislature, the various camps or the various groups are cluttered in terms of the platform they came in. So how robust is the foundation of a Labour Party, for example, vis-a-vis what I have said?
Or NNPP.
Or NPP, for example. And even for the ruling party, the PDP and the APC, we know people that have cross-carpeted twice or thrice, and we don't know. Even for the SDP, the critical players, if you go to Nasarawa, for example, the critical players that have emerged in SDP, we know are ab initio in APC and all that. So because of this lack of politics of ideology, the political parties, I keep on saying, are more or less special purpose vehicles, SPVs, for pursuing and delivering political interest. And especially from my own perspective, and it is very concerning for me, for the newer parties. Because if you, like what I have said earlier, there's a particular objective, critical objective, for some people to achieve, rather than a robust political, overall national political objective. And if that is the case, during legislation, a lot of things will play out, either due to lack of experience or due to lack that political ideology, and we cannot deny the fact that money plays a key role in driving these lobbies and all that. How those people get enticed for the new ones remains to be seen. For those that Mukhtar said may not want to lose election for the next cycle, an average Nigerian politician doesn't care about the next cycles. He cares about what to make the best of that time, believing that when that time comes, water will find it.
Okay, please let me have your take on this. How do you think NNPP and Labour Party, that should be your final thoughts on this, how they should fare? Yeah, because we're already know.
Okay, well, it's going to be very difficult for me to say at this point how they are going to fare or what they're going to do, but like the last point that Boba made, which is actually something I've actually thought about, but not really giving it a lot of thought, is the money angle. And because now if you have those seed capital you won under the whims and caprices of the election wave, how do you have the monies to start at the base? Because the people you're going to go and work with at this point are already at a certain level. So, and this is where you are. So how do you get the resources to push you to their level? Who funds you? and what does the person want back in return? At what expense? What are you willing to give? I think that's something I made, the point I made at the beginning. What's that thing that you feel like you're willing to do? How well do you even understand the seat you're about to occupy if you have no political capital? We saw situations of people who were doing small businesses who won House of Reps.
And they should live by that?
Yes.
All
so
right.
this is a very important period we are going in. We're going into a precipice of a very changing times.
All right, and I hope we get it right. Thank you very much, Mukhtar Suleiman from Accountability Lab, for coming to the program. Baba Yusuf, Strategies and Policy Analyst, CEO of Global Investment and Trade. We thank you for coming to the program. And viewers, that's a wrap on today's edition. Do well to be with us tomorrow for another interesting package. For now, thank you. I'm Hamza Idris.